Hello and welcome to the Seaman High Thursday Show. My name is Louis Smith and we have a great lineup of stories for you tonight, so let's get started. Do you remember kindergarten? The good old days of only having a half a day to go to school and then you get to have fun? Well, that could very well change. Let's go to Nick Carlson and Mr. Mathis to tell us more about it.
Hello to the Viking View, a show where we look at issues facing the Seaman School District. Today we would like to welcome Seaman Superintendent Mike Mathis to the program. Welcome to the program, Mr. Mathis.
Thank you.
I understand that one of the changes that the school district is looking at is all-day kindergarten.
Well, we're looking into the possibility of whether we want to implement all-day kindergarten or not. We've had a committee working on it for the past several months. They just reported their results at the board meeting last Monday night, and one of the recommendations that they made was they'd like to try to pilot all-day kindergarten in our two Title I schools, which are East Indianola and Lyman. Some of the obstacles we're facing in this is where are we going to find space for all-day kindergarten? Right now our schools are pretty full, and so to be able to implement all-day kindergarten, we'd have to create some space somehow. So that's an obstacle that we're facing. We think we can do that with our title schools, East Indianola and Lyman, simply by moving some of our special ed programs, early childhood special education and our 4-year-old at-risk program, out of those buildings into some other buildings, and that would give us space next year to be able to have a place for all-day kindergarten. And then we would use federal funding, Title I funds that comes from the federal government, not state or local dollars, to fund this, to pay for one extra teacher that we would need to do this in those two schools. So we think we can do that without costing our taxpayers a dime, and think it could be a real benefit for our kids at East Indianola and Lyman.
What are some of the advantages with all-day kindergarten?
Well, the research shows that especially for low socioeconomic status students, and that's kids who come from homes where they qualify for free and reduced lunch, the research shows that it really makes a big difference getting those kids up to grade level and reading at grade level by the end of the second grade. We think that's really important. Some of the kids come in with not as many advantages as some of the other kids who have had a little more money in the household and had books and attention and the electronic gadgets that are out nowadays, that can learn a little bit before they're in the kindergarten, and they're a little bit ahead of some of the lower socioeconomic status students. So we think that at East Indianola and Lyman, where our two Title I schools are, which Title I means they have a high group of low SES students, we think that if we can implement it at those two schools, that we can see a real difference in the level of our kids reading and being at grade level in reading and computation by the end of the second grade.
We know that the state is facing some serious budget problems and that this could affect us in the future. What impact do you think that the crisis will have on the Seaman School District?
Well, you're right. The state is in a crisis as far as budget is concerned, and not just Kansas, but the whole nation. How's it going to affect Seaman? Well, it's definitely going to have some effect on us. Next year, we're going to have to prepare a budget that will be $7 per pupil less than we were paid a year ago. With inflation, that puts us way behind the curve. We're going to have to do some things differently in our district to make sure that we don't have to affect the education of our students. We're going to have to become a lean, mean education machine, if you know what I mean. We've identified over $300,000 in cuts to our budget already. We hope that those don't affect students, but I know they will have some effect. For example, we are cutting out 13 coaching positions, most of those being assistant coaching positions. That's going to affect kids who are out for sports. We're looking at limiting the number of paraprofessional hours next year, the equivalence of 3 paraprofessional positions, $45,000 right there. So there are going to be some effects felt next year throughout the budget, and we hope that it doesn't affect students, but we know it's going to. Luckily, we're going to get through this because we're growing. If we were losing enrollment, this would be a very difficult time for us. But because we've averaged about 40 new students per year over the past 3 years, and we anticipate about 40 new students next year, we think we can get through this crisis for a year by cutting about $300,000 out of the budget and then getting about $150,000 new revenue from the 40 new students. If we do that, we can continue to operate just as we are this year. So we're hoping that that's what happens.
Well, I hope we can survive this crisis.
I'm sure we will.
Thanks for being with us today, Mr. Mathis.
Thanks, Nick and Mr. Mathis, for that information. What do you think when someone says snow day? You think a fun time in the snow, but how do you know if we're going to have a snow day? Matt Kimsey is here to let us know more about how it is made.
During the winter season, every child wishes for one thing: a snow day. A chance to sleep in, go sledding, and have a nice cup of hot chocolate. But the decision to cancel school was not always an easy one. We asked students if they thought we should be having school today.
Heck no. I do not believe that we should have had school today.
I think absolutely not. With the conditions the way they were, I don't think anybody should have been out driving.
Sadly, it is not up to the students. The decision is actually made by the Director of Transportation, Dave Fox, and Superintendent Mike Mathis.
Well, deciding whether to have school or not because of snow starts before it even starts snowing. We listen to the forecast. If snow's forecast, then I make plans to be in bed early and to get up early. I get up around 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning, and drive the roads and make sure that they're passable or find out that they aren't passable. Our transportation director also goes out and drives the roads. We try to cover as many roads in the district as we possibly can, and then we meet at the bus barn and make that determination as to whether we can have school or not. If we feel like there's a chance that we may not have school, then I call the superintendents of the other county schools and see what their thoughts are, see what they're planning on doing. At that point, I make the decision whether we're going to have school or not, based on all the information that I've had from driving the roads, from our transportation director driving the roads, and from what the superintendents of the other schools say. If I make that decision that we can't have school, then I alert the news media, and it's a done deal.
As you know, it's hard to predict the weather.
There's likely to be more winter weather on its way. When this weather comes, keep your TV on and look for the school closings.
Thanks, Matt. Have you ever noticed how clean our school is? Well, it's because there are people who are dedicated to making this school look good. So let's go to Ryan Irvin to talk about a special person who keeps this place looking great.
Every year, thousands of people walk through the halls of Seaman High School. They go on their sporting events, use the facilities, and learn in their classrooms. There's no doubt in my mind these people make messes, yet the school stays clean. Who's behind these miracles? What hero looms in the shadows? He's one of the few, the proud, the custodians, and his name's Steve Getty.
Every day you come to mop and sweep. The bleachers are trashed and it makes me want to.
What do you enjoy about working at Seaman?
The people, the students, being around.
Steve Getty, I should say, was a previous student of mine. He was a real good student, never caused any trouble. He's been a custodian here at Seaman High School for a number of years. I always remember Steve because when I taught here, he kept all the blackboards clean every day for me.
So clean. We love our janitors. I think you know what I mean. But we all know the truth.
When Steve Getty was young, he attended this great school, Seaman High. And yet, as he grew older, he returned to pay the favor back to the school that taught him so much.
You mop all day long, yeah, it must be so tough. Trash on the floor, you
Steve has been here a long time. He's one of the better custodians I've got. He'd been brought up to know how to work, and that's what he does. He thinks the only way to do a job is just the best way he can and get it done, regardless how long it takes. He's always here. I can always depend on Steve doing whatever I ask him. Very, very dependable.
You don't like a slob. In your profession, well, there are so few. And Mr. Clean don't got nothing on you, 'cause we...
What a guy he is. Thanks, Ron. I love to drink pop, and so do most teens today, but did you know that there is something in this drink that will not do a body so good? So let's go to Aaliyah Ford to tell more about it.
Many students use caffeine to stay awake late into the night. Some feel as though they cannot function in the morning without a cup of caffeine to give them a boost of energy. Caffeine is found in a wide range of food products. It's in soda pop, coffee, tea, and chocolate. Let's Let's see what Miss Susie Alexander, one of Seaman High's food teachers, has to say about the effects of caffeine.
It affects teenagers a lot of different ways. For some, it can make them feel real intense. It can make them kind of hard to concentrate in class.
Caffeine is also useful as a stimulant in the medical field. Caffeine is an addictive drug. Many students don't know how much is too much.
The amount that's recommended not to go over is 50 milligrams a day, and that's about what is in 2 to 3 cans of pop or 1 cup of coffee.
Once someone starts drinking caffeine, it's hard to stop drinking it or even limit yourself.
Ways to not get caffeine, you can drink decaffeinated pop. Coke and Pepsi and Dr. Pepper all have decaf forms. 7-Up, Sprite, those are decaf soft drinks. And then you can not drink pop, period. I mean, you can drink Snapple and fruit juice. Obviously, those drinks are not going to have caffeine in them as well.
Here's Miss Alexander to tell us what the big problem is.
It interferes with your body's absorption of calcium. Calcium is really important to teenagers. It's found in milk and cheese, products made from milk, ice cream. And it's real important to build strong bones. Your body loses the ability to store calcium as you get older, so it's real important for teens to stockpile as much calcium as they can now in their bones. So the more caffeine you drink, the harder it is for your body to store that calcium that you need.
90% of Americans consume caffeine every day, but caffeine has many effects and disadvantages, and that is why teens should limit the amount of caffeine they consume.
Thanks, Aaliyah. The boys basketball team have been doing great. Unfortunately, they failed to Washburn Rural and Shawnee Heights last week, which both were great games. And we don't have any highlights for them yet, but some are on the way. Fortunately, the week before, they had 2 huge wins, both in overtimes. Here are the great highlights of those games. Late in the first half, last Tuesday night, it looked as if Manhattan's boys were on the verge of running Seaman out of its own gym. In the end, however, it was darn near impossible to get either teams to leave. A spirited second half, Seaman comeback set the stage for a 5-overtime thriller before the Vikings were finally able to subdue the Indians 74-67. Seaman, which improved to a 6-8 trail by 15 with less than a minute left in the first half, while Manhattan, who would not score again until Jeff Odo hit 2 free throws with 1:02 left in the third quarter. The Indians' first second-half field goal came on a Greg Gatkins shot as time ran out in the third quarter. Manhattan, 6-8, wouldn't hit another shot from the floor until the 4:44 mark of the fourth quarter. By that time, Seaman had fought back to tie the game at 36, and the contest was a nail-biter the rest of the way. Seaman trailed by 3 in the 5th overtime after Gaskins nailed a 3-pointer, but Seaman senior Matt Kimsey hit 2 huge shots for only his 4 points of the game, and then Henderson scored 8 straight points for his team as the Vikings took control. Seaman also got 18 points off the bench from senior Steven Strobel and 11 from junior Brent Lears, while the Vikings went 29-37 from the free throw line. Next, we have Highland Park. Seaman is getting better at this overtime thing. This time it took the Vikings only 2 extra periods to pull out a huge victory. 3 days after knocking off Manhattan in a 5-overtime game, the Vikings handed a second-ranked Class 5A Sky their first league loss of the year and ended Park's 8-game winning streak. The win was first for Seaman at Highland Park in at least 13 years. The Vikings coach Charles Galata said that Tuesday's experience paid dividends like that. Seaman had 12 points from senior Steve Strobel, 11 from Jeremy Henderson, and 10 from Brent Lears. This week is also Snowball Week, so come out early, see the crownings, and stay in support of your Vikes as they take on their arch rivals Hayes. Well, that's all the stories we have here, so here's some upcoming events at Seaman High School. This will air again on Sunday at 6:30. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on The Thursday Show.